Blessed day to everyone. I am Lindri and I'm your MC for this spotlight session on integrated energy system planning. To formally start this session, I'd like to call on the virtual stage from Asian Development Bank, the Chief of Energy Sector Group, Priyanta Wijayatunga.
Thank you very much, Lindri. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, wherever you are joining from. Warmest greetings to all the participants and the speakers. Thank you for attending this spotlight session on integrated energy planning. As all of us know, everything in this world is impermanent, except one. What's this one thing which does not change in the world? It is the change itself. We are surrounded by changes, climate change impacts, ever-changing technologies, changing policies and commitments, and changing needs. We are all surrounded. All these changes are surrounded. We are surrounded by all these changes. To help us cope with the perennial changes, we need to have a plan. We need to have a system. As countries strive to realize their sustainable development goals, nationally determined contributions, and net zero targets, energy plays a critical role, as all of us know. Energy system analysis and planning must evolve to consider multidimensional factors. With all the ongoing and necessary changes, integrated energy system planning enables the systematic analysis of factors to find optimal solutions in achieving energy, socioeconomic, and climate goals. The International Atomic Energy Agency, or we simply call it IAEA, promotes the use of several technology-neutral, integrated planning modeling tools. These tools can assist in defining optimal energy generation profiles, accounting for environmental and external costs, and calculating financial viability of energy projects, among others. ADB, in partnership with IAEA, aims to build the capacities of our developing member countries to do integrated energy planning. Our recently approved 2021 energy policy backs this initiative of enabling our DMCs, or developing member countries, to fully understand how their energy sector should change as they achieve their sustainable development goals, nationally determined contributions, and net zero targets. In this spotlight session, we will introduce several integrated energy modeling tools. These can support long-term energy planning that is compatible with development and climate goals. Through these tools, we hope to help in addressing complex development challenges and delivering comprehensive developmental impacts. All these for the vision of a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific region. For today, let's all make this session a success, with everyone's sharing knowledge, insights, and experiences. Let us look forward to an interactive and meaningful discussion. Thank you. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you so much, Priyanta. Indeed, change is permanent. And amidst all these changes, energy system planning is a process used by countries to identify the role of different technologies in meeting their future energy needs. To set the scene for this session, let's all welcome to the virtual stage from the International Atomic Energy Agency, the section head of Planning and Economic Studies, Henri Payet. Over to you, Henri.
Thank you, Lindri, and welcome everyone. Greetings from the International Atomic Energy Agency. Greetings from Vienna. It is a great pleasure for me to provide some background information on the importance of integrated energy planning to better inform policy making. We are thankful for the collaboration between the Asian Development Bank and the International Atomic Energy Agency in the field of energy planning. This collaboration was very active in the past, and we look forward to working closely with ADB and our member states. Why is integrated energy planning becoming so important again? First, the world is facing a climate crisis, which will only get worse if governments do not act swiftly to curb greenhouse gas emissions responsible for global warming. The call for action was loud and clear at the COP26 conference last year in Glasgow. The IPCC Working Group 2 report on impacts, adaptation and vulnerability, published in February this year, paints a dire picture of the future we face and the impact of climate change on the world. I had the honor to chair a webinar earlier this week at the UNFCCC Climate Change Conference in Bonn, with speakers from the World Meteorological Organization, the International Energy Agency, EDF, Argonne National Lab in the US, and the IAEA on scientific approaches, for instance, regional or community scale climate modeling, to assess the climate resilience of energy infrastructures. Climate resilience is definitely one of the criteria that future energy systems must meet. The IPCC Working Group 3 report on mitigation, released in April this year, gives hope that we are still able to curb emissions. IPCC Chair Ho-Sung Lee said, "We are at a crossroads. The decisions we now make can secure a livable future. We have the tools and know-how required to limit warming." Judging from the increasing number of member states that are pledging net zero objectives for the middle of the century or near after, there is a political will to act. There are tools and methodologies that can provide the basis for making the right decision. Integrated energy planning is one of the tools that can help governments develop transition pathways that meet the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda and the 2050 goals of the Paris Agreement. To help understand how to make the best investment decisions with respect to deploying clean energy technologies, with an understanding of how climate, energy, land use, and therefore also the food sector and water are coupled, how decisions in one sector can affect the other sectors. Energy planning is not just about investing in new technology. It is how to optimize the existing assets, deploy new technologies, but also identify critical bottlenecks, such as the availability of finance, critical minerals, technologies that are not yet deployed. It is about planning resources, finance investments, minimize environmental impacts. The current energy crisis has shown how dependent the world still is on fossil fuels and reminded us of the importance of security of energy supply. Investing in clean technologies, whether renewable technologies such as wind or solar PV, or even nuclear power for some member states that are considering this option, is a way to reduce dependence on imported fossil fuels and improve security of energy supply. There is general agreement that increased electrification with clean power generation is a necessary step in the transformation of the energy sector. But integrated energy planning also needs to address the necessary decarbonization of the other sectors, transport, industry, so-called hard-to-abate sectors that are very dependent on fossil fuel today. This is no easy challenge. The transitions towards net zero energy systems are very constrained transformation of our current systems and our economies. They will be costly too. So it is one of the main objectives of integrated energy planning to highlight the possible options, assess the costs, the limitation, the risk associated to the transitions. We know what we would like to have: clean, resilient, affordable energy systems that meet the 2030 agenda and the goals of the Paris Agreement. How to get there is what integrated energy planning is about. Success also depends on the level of collaboration between modeling partners, academia, and international organizations. We very much value the collaborations with ADB in this respect, and this collaboration can be a success factor for member states engaging in integrated energy planning activities. The IAEA Technical Collaboration Program is the vehicle for member states in the region to engage with the agency's energy planning and capacity building team. We have provided in the past such support, including training on energy planning tools, which my colleagues Andri and Ilse will present later today, to many countries in the region, and we look forward to provide similar support today. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Henry. And just a reminder to our audience, you can actively participate in this session by asking your questions. You can see on your screen a Q&A tab. Just click on that and then type in your questions. Integrated energy system planning indeed enables the systematic analysis of factors to find optimal solutions to achieve energy, socio-economic, and climate goals. The International Atomic Energy Agency has its capacity building program on energy planning. It also has its integrated energy planning tools. And to give us an overview in this session, may I call on to the virtual stage from the International Atomic Energy Agency, the unit head of planning and capacity building, Andriy Gritsevsky, along with from Asian Development Bank, the principal energy economist, Kiyu Nam. Over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. I will just start off because that's the presentation. Although this overview of the agency's capacity building program on energy planning and its integrated energy system planning tools. But the thing is that this is in the ADB side, this is quite a nascent stage, and we are, which is included in the energy policy as it is. So we are pushing through the technical assistance to DMC's capacity building on this integrated energy system planning tools, so to say. So this is this year's ASAF and the Spotlight session one that we would like to bring your attention that this is the one of the mandate that ADB should, from the energy sector group, should push us through and develop the kind of a capacity building of, enhance the capacity building of the ADB's member countries, member states, so to say. So I will just do a very brief presentation and introduction on the overview of the, so to say, the IAEA is the planning tool, so to say. They used to have a lot more, but now it is limited. But so I will just give a very brief introduction on that one. Next slide, please. Yeah. This is the one of the capacity building for the energy planning that, IAEA is not only doing the capacity building, actually is also maintaining and developing the modeling tools for the energy planning. As this is, the energy planning is an integral part of a policy and investment decision making in the energy sector, in particular these days, to meet the carbon neutrality and to accomplish the goal of this NDC targets. But in this, IAEA has pioneered, so to say, capacity building activities more than decades, with experience in supporting the member states in energy planning. So more than 2 or 3 decades, I think 2.5 decades, which is supposed to decision and policy making by assisting member states to strengthen national capabilities in energy system analysis, so that country can develop their own sustainable energy strategies, so to say. So, what the whole idea of this, bringing this tools for the capacity building is, it is essential for the, national expertise that, the individual country should have. Here are showing some of this, some documents, publications that, also, which is the part of, which explains very much about this energy system planning, its importance, and some of this assessment report as well. Next slide, please. So this is similar to what we have in the ADB as well. So overall, we want to have the capacity building of our ADBs, DMCs on the energy system assessment, or to come up with a long-term energy system planning. So how we're going to do is that we're going to use, like, in collaboration with IAEA, that we would like to have the kind of use the analytical tools to conduct the training, as well as the technical support for the providing the lectures for the capacity building. So this is the agency. They do have the technical assist for the energy studies, as well as this will have also technical assistance from the ADB side. So we'll also would like to do that after capacity building, and after the each nations have the capacity, so to say, then to conduct some of these energy studies. And it's obviously just like in the ASAF, as well as some other venues that we would like to also disseminate the information, or so to say the knowledge sharing event, knowledge sharing. Next slide, please. So these are the kind of energy system assessment tools that IAEA is, so to say, promoting or supporting. So which distributed more than 150 member states, IAEA member states, and then 21 regional and international organizations that they are using that. So here we see that that's started from the recent. I mean, that was about 5 years, I think, more. To EBS, which is the kind of energy statistic and energy balance compilation. So it is a kind of simple software where you can make up some of this energy balances set up, so to say. And then we have it on the right hand side on the top, MAD, which is the model for analysis of energy demand. So which will analyze the energy demand, and then also the projection of the so to say energy demand. It's not only the power sector, but entire energy system. And then we have a WASP, which has been long there, several decades, that it is the power expansion planning, so to say. So this is the that's one. And then there is the FIN plan, which has been there for. Also, this is the model for financial analysis of electric sector expansion plans, so to say, to come up with what will be the most plan for the financial investment required or viability of the certain power generation projects. And then ESST, this is the energy scenario simulation tool. I think this is the very fast estimate, or through the simulation, that what would be the best option to come out in given that different energy scenarios. SIMPAX is a simplified approach for estimating the impacts of electricity generation. This is a simplified method for the analysis of power plants and environmental impacts. And within the SIMPAX, there are 3 packs, so to say, air pack, hydro pack, and nuke packs, I think. And then normally they calculate what is environmental damage caused by any type of the power projects that that estimates that way. And then one of the most powerful tool where ADB is very much interested to for the capacity building of the ADB DMCs, which is called the MESSAGE, which is the model for energy supply strategy alternatives and their general environmental impacts, which is the optimization model, which provides energy supply optimization and simulations, so to say. This is the kind of tool that we are very much interested on that one. So how the IAEA has used these tools and in selected some of these studies or something that I will turn over now to Angie. So continue with the presentation on that, how IAEA has been involved with using these tools. Thank you.
Thank you, Nam. So basically, who is a recipient of all of these services and applying these tools for practical things? Typically, we're dealing with national teams, which is composed of experts from energy planning offices at national different ministries, also specialized agencies, but we also advised to engage energy utility and academia in order to make the whole process is sustainable, because integrated energy planning is not a thing you're doing only once, produce a report and then forget about it. It's constantly updating activity which need to reflect over changing realities and difficulties, problems, and challenging countries is actually facing. So here on this slide is a few examples of the most recent activity we help countries to conduct. So one of those is regional European project for building capacity. You shouldn't be misled by term of European, because in agency definition, it also includes quite a number of Asian countries. You see 26 countries there, so quite a number of former republics from like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan is also participated in this study, and focus was on the role of low carbon energy technology and climate change mitigation. Number of the tools were used. Then we had a regional Latin American Caribbean project with 15 countries, pretty big one, and we will continue these activities. So it started at the national level and then moved in a more integrated regional one, because we understand that energy problem cannot be addressed only at the national level. It needs to be some sort of agreement of what to do at the regional scale and have a good understanding of what your partners in the region actually doing. We had a specific project for Caribbean islands for building local capacity, because their situation is quite different. As you can imagine, their options are also different, and approaches for integrated assessment need to be adapted for their realities. We also hope that in the future that experience could be used to create a similar kind of the services for maybe Pacific region, because obviously they're facing a lot of challenges, and the way they can address them and their options are differ compared to the other bigger countries on the land actually. So we are partner, technical partner for very big and quite ambitious continental master plan for Africa, which is done under AUDENEPAD. It's an African organization with direct involvement of 5 African power pools. So Renewable Agency and us are modeling partners. We're helping countries and partners establish the modeling capability, which is based on a message tool, and do a future possible pathways of different development of electric systems, decentralized system, different technological options which the country may use, and aim for integrated network of electricity for whole Africa. So we're also working directly with some countries on national projects. There are quite a number of them, and focus could be different from a classical capacity building on energy system analysis to providing support for defining national determined contributions, master plans, and so on. And here is a list of the few countries that basically managed to finish their studies or doing that in a recent terms. So what is we learn over the 25 plus years experience in capacity building related to energy planning? That involvement of the partners, multiple partners, is absolutely crucial and essential. So there is no single international or local or regional organization that can do it on its own. It needs to be coordinated action. And this today event is basically demonstration. We need to involve every partners which is dealing in this area to join efforts to provide a really good and important and sustainable services. Last 2 years demonstrated us a new challenges. So living in a virtual world mostly, where there is no chance for physical communication, normal classical training, give us strong idea that we need to engage different partners and different stakeholders. So we organize summer schools, joint training, involved in activity related to different energy regional modeling platform, because even in a time when physical communication is limited, we still need to have opportunity to train the people and make this process sustainable. And what is critical to maintain a sufficient pool of external experts and strong networking between them, so they can exchange information, they can exchange approaches, they can actually build something which could last long. So, famous phrase, plans are nothing, planning is everything. And the reason there is we don't believe that some external actor could define the good plan for any nation or region. So local expertise, in our view, is absolutely critical. Understanding of the problems is critical. Ability to use the tools and create models reflecting reality of specific countries is absolutely critical. And energy planning is not a one-time exercise. It needs to be repeated process over a long time to adjusting to ever-changing realities, changing situations, focuses, policies, and so on. So, just example of what was done in the year 2021. It's again mostly virtual events. We managed to train 770 participants, almost 200 of them females, which is quite important things to reach a gender balance. It was a 32 events, mostly again virtual ones, and we engaged with 85 member states, so basically countries, which is quite a lot for virtual communication. Just give you a scale of operation we are doing. So few things. So what's the motivation? What we are really, how we trying to tune these services? So it's not us that defining what need to be done. It's supposed to reflect the member states or countries in normal terms needs, and this need could differ, focus could differ from time to time, and we need to tune services, tools, and approaches we are using depending on those questions that country trying to address. So most of our support is going through the technical cooperation program, which is probably the biggest activity agency, International Atomic Energy Agency, is doing. So in terms of scale of operation, in terms of finance involved, it's very active and it's absolutely instrumental to implementing this program and project. So it is helping to specific project management and financing, organizing most of these events, and focus recently on regional activities. That's what we found, that it's very important to engage multiple countries on the same kind of training so they can also exchange experience from each other as well. So the way it's done, technical cooperation working with a technical department like ours. So there is technical officers and there are program management officers specifically for implementation for very concrete program project which is with well-established objectives and deliveries. So what we are doing, our section with, we are positioned Department of Nuclear Energy, but dealing with any form of energy, not only limited to nuclear at all. So we are responsible for technical implementation and energy planning. We are contributing with a different field of activities, and basically doing development, maintenance, update of the tools, providing capacity building events jointly with the partners, and training programs and all related services, because when training is done, work just started. So basically it's going to be constant service and support for needs of the countries and expert dealing with these tools, models, and analysis. So our core objectives is capacity building, support, and development of related tool and methodologies focused on energy demand and supply analysis. Other tools help to do analysis, but core, of course, to first understand the future needs and then try to see alternative energy system which could supply these needs. So that's what we're trying to do. We are dealing with relatively long-term energy plans and strategies because it's not really for short-term like 5 to 10 years things. We are looking in a longer term because focus is sustainable development, and in order to really understand that the system is going in sustainable way, we need to deal with a long-term energy plans. So we are providing technical assistance to national experts from various institutions, because no single ministry or agency have sufficient expertise to address these complicated problems. It's multidisciplinary by nature and requires a communication between the different stakeholders, data coming from statistical offices or administrative offices. In order to make a process, we need to involve universities and academia, and government ministry and agencies, as well as utilities, naturally involved in making plans and do assessment. So, what is important approach in what our agency doing for multiple years? We are trying to do provide the services which is independent from basically any other component. So we're providing tools, we're providing support. So these things could be done by member states itself. And ideally, after they receive all of these services, when they train in effective use of the tools, when they're creating their own models, they should be capable independently conduct analysis on energy demand and supply and address multiple related problems on their own in order to make this whole process sustainable in long term. So areas of consideration which we are basically focusing on is training and support is critical, because tools could be fantastic, they could really do miracles, but if national experts are not really master the ability to use tools efficiently, not really have sufficient knowledge to create different models to address a different question, tools not going to be very useful. So training and support is quite important on that, to build this capability gradually and provide between the training and support on use of the tools, advice on the usage of them, and as well as some recommendations. So, of course, we're maintaining a set of our tools, which is completely free and could be distributed to any member states that need them, and updating methodology so they reflect all new enhancement needs, trends, and basically question which is emerged, including creating net zero scenarios, use of the alternative technologies, use of alternative energy commodities like hydrogen and so on. So we have internal capacity to provide these services, doing coordination with different partners and cooperation with other actors that basically providing similar services to make a better use of resources, international resources available for member states. So we also support external programs. So sometimes other organizations running their own programs, and we contribute to that using also expert lecturers and trainers, and engage expert lecturers and trainers from this organization as well to provide support for our own activities. External collaboration is absolutely essential, as I mentioned before, with the different actors, ranging from similar capacity building providers and to the organization like donors like Asian Development Bank, World Bank, and other, as well as basically some utilities and other actors at regional and national scales. And of course, we're providing documentation and publication related to our tools, which is essential for long-term sustainability of these services. So, this capacity building are organized over the set of our own tools, covering most of energy planning processes phases. So going from analysis of current situation or for energy statistic, energy demand, trying to understand how demand may evolve in the future with alternative scenario of development, and then defining possible supply options, then analyzing a different configuration which could satisfy the supply and their financial implication, environmental impact, and related kind of the things. Tools are not deliberately not directly integrated or firmly connected, which allow flexibility of their use. So depending on a project and objective of specific activity, we can advise involved partners to use a combination of the tools, which is the most relevant for what they're trying to study, which allow a flexibility to use our tools as well as probably use some other tools which is already well established in that country, so they could effectively be used together. So we're doing a development and update of our tools basically with involvement of multiple actors and cooperative partners. So improving functionality, harmonizing user experience. So tools look similar and could be, if you learn one, it would be easier to learn another. Keeping up-to-date methodologies, comparing with alternative available tools, including even commercial options, trying to keep up-to-date technical documentation, which is essential for effective use of the tools, and providing more and more training materials and services, specifically in the form of e-learning, self-educated packages, exercises, assignment, and so on. And as well as we're trying to make a tools, IT, or operational system independent, because in the future, it's a choice of our users what kind of operational platforms they want to use. And the idea is try to make them as friendly as possible and no need to specifically develop a specific operational system. So user experience could be very much the same across a platform using web app approaches. We also understand that sometimes users would prefer to use the tools directly in the cloud, and in case of commercial optimization services, that probably is the most cost-effective options. So we're helping users to build their own cloud infrastructure if they want, or use ours, which is public, which we can provide them. And we're trying to follow open source principles. So not only we providing tools, but trying to engage users on co-creation, improving our tools, and basically doing their own enhancement and hopefully share with other users that may need a similar kind of better experience. So thank you very much. Basically, I reach the end of the first presentation. And probably, unless there are some burning questions already, we can probably move to a second one with a specific focus of one's tools, which is now described as a core of our activities related to supply analysis. I don't.
Thank you so much, Adri, for your presentation on the overview of the capacity building program on energy planning and the tools that IAEA offers. And just a reminder to our audience, you can actively participate by asking your questions. Click on the Q&A tab and type in your questions. Now we move to another presentation. This time, it's about the message. It is the tool for Sustainable Energy Supply System Development Assessment. And for this presentation, we will be calling back to the virtual stage Andriy Gritsevsky, along with Energy System Analyst from International Atomic Energy Agency, Ilse Cordellans Escobar. Over to you.
Thank you very much. So our second presentation, trying to give you introduction what is a agency message tool is capable of, what it could be used for, and clearly in such a short small presentation, we cannot really go in details or even give you a lifetime demonstration of the tools, which would be really nice. Hopefully in the future, we will organize joint events, virtual as well as a physical, jointly with ADB, and can provide more deeper introduction in a tool and actual training for those that really interested in using these tools. Before I will start these things, so agency providing our tools to all member states, and there is a relatively simple process to request them. So by checking our web pages and writing a request to the contact point, filling a license agreement form. You can get any tools you believe could be useful for your analysis. And we also provide e-learning packages jointly with some other partners, including some training courses on Open University and on our own energy platform. So tools are open basically for every member states for use for whatever purposes they need it. So let me start with what's behind of abbreviation of the message. So message stands for Model for Energy Supply System Alternatives and the general environmental impacts. And what's important there? Well, we're dealing with system, energy system, and we're trying to analyze alternatives. So principles are, we always believe there is a future alternatives, how energy could be supplied, and we're trying to compare them, seeing advantages in going in a different technological mixed, because for every country, we're always using combination of technologies, specific ones, and energy system is evolving, living organism. It's changing over time, adapting to the needs of the users, to changing situation, to objectives, and of course, every technology have environmental impact, and we need to compare them, and we need to find a sustainable path for long future. So software is designed for setting up specific optimization model of energy supply system, typically at national scale, and see how capacity of different technology could be expanded over time, which one will be retired at what time, what are a necessary investment for building this new capacity, and calculate environmental impact related to use of these technologies, and also evaluate the different established or possible suggested policies for a future. Could be used as a national scale, but also perfectly capable of dealing with sub-regional or even regional level models. If you recall a first presentation, we had example where this tool actually used for a continental master plan of Africa, where every country is represented. So we can deal with a really high level of details, and every country in these very big regions actually represented. So key characteristics of that model. Focus in on medium to long-term time frame. We're dealing with a few decades to possibly up to 2050, or maybe even up to the end of the century, to see a later, let's say, path of decarbonization, which is a long-term process, long transformation in existing systems, and by necessity need to be addressed in a longer time frames, where we need to introduce a new technology, see how they used, and actually how they're going to be replaced with the future ones. So we are dealing with the energy systems in general to oppose just only power system or electricity generation system. So message is very flexible tool, allow you the definition of the system you want to, and it's up to you where you set up a boundaries and to what level of detail you represent your energy system. It's using optimization principles as opposed to simulation or accounting framework to try to find what a rational expansion could be under certain given constraints. And behind of that, we are using principles of linear or mixed integer optimization. So it's dynamic as opposed to the static, because we're dealing with expansion over time. So it's not just a snapshot what could happen in 1 year, 2 years, or whatever. It's a dynamic decision tool, which is see what a combination of technology could be used in the future, and to what extent they fit into specific policies or requirements, investments, and some limitation you impose in your system. It's bottom up to opposed to top down. So we're building our models from building blocks and trying to put them together as a one system. So it is different to the conventional econometric or input-output models. It's bottom-up engineering type of the models using energy flow principles. So what's a building blocks in a message tool? It's a different technology which can do basically three things. One is transforming one energy forms to another. Another, it could be transforming energy forms in a space from one point to another, from point of production to point of the use, or in time, so where you store certain energy and then release it when you need it. So typical representation of these technologies could be getting energy forms into your system. It could be like oil extraction facility, or converting hydro potentials to actual electricity, like hydropower plants. Moving in from point of production to time when it could be actually used, like transmission electric lines, or providing actual energy services to users, like a car, moving passengers or moving goods from one point to another. So energy system, which is a core concept in message 2, consists of energy resources and sources, because energy is not could not be created or destroyed, so it need to be taken. So in order to bring it into economic activities, need to be taken from a nature, everything coming from a nature, including renewable sources. So it could be like conventional fossil fuels like there, or it could be potentials for renewable energy like a wind, hydro, and so on. So we need to monitor amount of resources and sources available for specific system, and cost, of course, also differ depending on the what resources you're typing and where you're actually building your technologies. The most critical component, like I mentioned, building blocks are technologies, which could be from extracting from a nature process, converting in a form, process rather than bringing it from a resource basis to a system, then convert from one form to another, and then transmit and distribute to the end users. And what technology dealing with, what's the input and output? It's energy forms. So energy which is extracted from natural resources, energy which is transformed, like we taking a crude oil and producing oil products. So processed forms would be different type of oil products, and then delivered to the end users in some forms. So basically, it's energy flow model. So we're dealing with a different energy level and energy forms. So energy supply model is built by characterization different energy forms and fuels. So at different levels, going first from a nature resources and primary, secondary, and final, and so on. And at all of these levels, we have a different energy forms where we're doing accounting for, like gas, coal, electricity, and so on. So that's a simple representation of so-called energy chain or energy system. So going from nature, like oil extraction or coal import is also entering our system from different country, bringing to primary energy level where we have different energy forms. Then using a conversion, example could be power plant or refinery, producing a different secondary, potentially secondary energy form, like oil products, diesel, kerosene, and could be gas processed one, or electricity, which don't exist in nature. And after that, as a production point, it's still not very useful for users. It needs to be delivered to them. That means need to be transported and distributed. So then we have a part of transportation distribution network where it's entering final energy form, where rest of economy outside of energy sector can actually use it. And then, in fact, users don't care about energy form just as energy forms. They care about what they could be used for. So they're looking for specific services, and services, example of these services could be like a heat, lighting, mechanical energy, and other things. That's what actually users want. And principles are, we're trying to build a different alternative chains of future system changing over time, and try to find compare them based on certain criteria. So that's a very simple first example of message reference energy system where it's from our training. So you're taking a coal from a nature, from coal resources. Then there is a coal extraction, like a mining technology, and it's bringing a coal as a energy form at primary level. Then in principle, it could be used in producing electricity using technology coal electricity production. It could also use a gas, which in this case of the simple example, there is no resources in that system, so it is all coming as an import. And gas could also be used for heat production, but there are also hydropower plants and electricity import from another country, and so on and so on. Then at the level of demand, we have a specific heat demand, electricity demand, which need to be satisfied. So from a point of production, where it is at secondary level, using a transportation distribution network, corresponding electricity and heat need to be delivered to the user. So that's basically system we're trying to analyze as a first example of the message. It could be much more complicated examples, and message is extremely flexible in defining a system. Basically, it starts from whatever you want, whatever you think is important, and stop at whatever level you think is relevant for a study you're doing. So it could be much more complicated things with a very high level of details and forms used, depending on the needs of specific analysis. So how we finding a future expansion plans? We using optimization principles. So what we're trying to do, trying to minimize total discounted energy system cost over time of modeling, subject to multiple constraints. So first obvious one, we need to satisfy demands. We have certain possible constraints on resources, especially domestic one, and maybe related costs to those. There are certain capacity bounds, so we don't have, let's say, infinite potentials in the hydropower or wind. So certain things need to be satisfied, or it could be also policy to reach certain capacities, at least certain one by certain time. As well as environmental constraints, for example, green gases emission over time or cumulative over time. So we're trying to minimize overall system energy costs, so find a system expansion plan under certain given constraints. So depending on the type of formulation we can put and constraints we put in a system, we're using either classical linear programming or, if it's necessary, mixed integer programming. So where mixed integer programming could be important, let's say you're building a really large hydropower plants, and in this case, you just either build something or don't. So your decision is just to build or not, and it's basically like a 0 or 1 decision. And in this case, we need to decide at what time you build or you don't. Could be multiple projects you're also trying to evaluate, and because you cannot build a half of the project, it would be mixed integer programming involved. So what could be done very quickly with a message? If we will still have time, by the end we will try to go through the couple of the screens showing you how certain things could be implemented in the message. So yeah, it can do combined heat and power plants easily. Multiple inputs, multiple outputs. It can easily do model environmental regulations of different kind, not necessarily only green gases. It could be also pollution of other like sulfur or NOx or other kind of environmental impacts. Can do even nuclear power and fuel cycle if necessary, if there is an interest in doing so. It can do modeling of climate policies. It can do a modeling of existing plants rehabilitation. Like you have some capacity which you want to do lifetime extension, or you want to modernize and reduce, let's say, emission factors or some other environmental impact. So it can do proper modeling of variation of demand and production. So here's example of a realistic electricity demand over the year, and message can represent these things fairly well. At the level of details user believe is necessary to do. Just don't forget that for existing historical data, you probably have sufficient data, but for a future, you need to introduce all of this variability on the future demand. And apparently, because of the major uncertainty involved, it needs to be multiple scenario of future energy demand. It can also do variation of production capability. Here's a symbolic picture. Clearly, solar is a great technology which is improving a lot, but unfortunately, so far, we cannot get output from solar power plant during the night. So that means it needs to be linked to the actual availability of the input to this energy. Wind is another booming renewable technology, but again, we're not fully in control where wind is blowing and what kind of output we can get. So it can do a simulation of this variation in production capability. It can do quite a sophisticated modeling of existing or future potential hydropower plants. So here's an example of multi-cascade and different kind of flow of water. So it can link a flow of water, storages, and electricity production of these things, and make a decision about expansion of corresponding generation capacity, as well as simulating outputs, including natural flows. And from this point, let me pass a floor to my colleague Ilse. So, Ilse.
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. I will continue from this. As Andy was explaining, the message is flexible enough to accommodate different type of technology. And it's not just limited to the generation or to the power part. It's also able to model all the end uses and the technology. So we can talk about here of a different option for the transport sector. We can talk about here like a different option for the household sector with a new type of appliance that we have now. This is smart appliance where you can control and combine them with the load of the system and make it more intelligent in a way that you would use it when you have the cheapest energy supply, and then you would use it late, not use it when they said the most expensive at the time, and so on. So we can also, this model is flexible enough for accommodating this type of technology. Next, Andre. And as Andy was mentioned, one of the challenges that the energy system has is the intermittence of the renewable technology. And one of the things that the model is able to do is just to model the reserve capacity. And this reserve capacity is not just for the reserve of the system in case that anything happens and you have an emergency and you need an extra energy. It's also to accommodate this type of technology. So it means that it can model a certain reserve for the time where you don't have the solar, for example, or when the wind is not blowing, and then you would need another type of technology to supply the demand or that is at that time. And it also is a good one, and you can use it different type of technology. So doing the reserve capacity doesn't mean that you need to have a capacity that you don't know where it is coming on. So you know what type of technology will be involved in that capacity, to what extent you want that capacity involved, and so on. So it's flexible enough for accommodating that. Next one, Andre. And as we were mentioning before, it's just not limited to the electricity production or to supply the electricity. It is also capable of modeling other type of system. And one of the important challenges that we have for certain regions in the world is the issue with the water and the water demand. So you can model with MESAGE the water demand, and you can model the water technology, so the water supply technology, like the water desalination or the water production technology. Any type of them you can model in the system, and you can account how much technology you would need to supply this demand of water, but also how much energy you would need to supply the water. So it's a combination of both, and then you could do it there. Andre, next one, please. And of course, you can do all the electricity trade, and not just electricity, all type of energy commodity trade. You can do it in the model. So, and it is very important when we do this regional assessment of or this regional planning, because you can use the opportunity that one country has because they have certain resources that can be exported or can be used in another part of the region, and the other country could benefit out of that, because for the time when, for example, there are countries where the energy has some certain seasonality, and for those countries, they could benefit out of the neighbor or from other sources. So like, for example, in winter, there are countries that they face problem with the gas, or there are countries that face problem with the water, and then they can benefit from those countries that have these exceeds in their energy supply. So it means that this regional approach is very important, because you could have a better understanding how to better use all the resources, not just what you have inside or do your domestic part, if not what you could use in a better way from the other part of the region. And it would also help you to know to what extent this trade can be done. So what could be the beneficial part of the trade, where it should be the best moment to do it, and so on. Next one. And as Andrew was mentioning before, the model is able to allow you to model and to understand all the environmental regulations. And when you mean environmental, it's not just the greenhouse gases production, it could be whatever type of pollutant that you want to model that is linked to the energy production and in any of the states of the energy change. As it was shown before, you could model the extraction, so you could know how much is the pollution emission at the extraction point, how much it could be at the production of energy, secondary energy, or the production of the electricity, or even you could know how much is the pollution at the end use part. So, and then model is flexible enough to model different type of pollution abatement technology. So in a way that you could know which is better for the system, take into account the environmental regulation that you could have in the country or you could have in the region, and which type of technology would be better. One technology that's clean enough and that it doesn't produce any type of emission, or one technology that could have certain abatement pollution technology within the heat, but it costs you a little bit more. So, and then depending on the energy needs and so on, you could have a look at the mix of the type of technology you could install in your system to accomplish with the environmental regulation that you have. Next one. And also the system this message will provide you to have a look and an insight to all the modeling climate policies. So you can put the policies there and you could see what could be the implication of those policies, and you could analyze what is better for your system, is it to impose a limit or to put some penalty, or what could be the implication of those penalty. If there is emission trading, you could see how much it could be, how much you can benefit from the other countries, and so on. And one thing that is really, really important is that the model helps you to analyze all these net zero targets that the country, or the NDCs target that the country are now trying to implement to reduce all the emissions and to accomplish with these net zero targets that we have. Next one. And now we just wanted to briefly show you some example of country cases and regional studies. Some of them are already published, as we will see, and some of them are just now being implemented and under development. Next one. So this first set of studies is country study that were done by the countries themselves using our tools, not just message. They use message and others of our tools that were presenting before. And the great thing of this is not a study that we did, it's a study that the countries did. We support them, we guide them at the beginning, but they were able to come up with their energy plans as they did. Like, for example, for the Kingdom of Eswatini, they create their energy master plan to the year 2034. Click. Or for Rwanda, that they analyze all the development plan up to the year 2040, where they analyze all the resources, national resources that they have and how to better use it then, or the integrated energy plan that's for Botswana. This is an example for Africa, where those countries were able to do their own study using our tool, but was done by themselves. We have also example in the Latin America region, where these tools are used For example, they use it for the analysis of the policy that they will implement for the development of the energy and the human development goals, together with the UNDP office. Or, for example, we have two examples here of the normal energy plan that they issue every year. One example is for the energy demand in Guatemala, and the other example is for the energy master plan for Colombia, that they do it every year, and every year they do it with our tools. So it's like the base of their energy planning in the countries is the use of our tools. These countries, they are doing everything on their own. So we are not even now supporting them because they have the expertise and the capacity, and they actually are supporting other countries and helping us to replicate this knowledge in other countries. And also, I wanted also to show you, we wanted to show you some, next one, Andre, studies that are now being implemented. And we have a huge project with Latin America that it was mentioned before. And this study had like 3 phases. First phase was just to support the countries with their national study and to build the capacity in the countries. After that, the countries started to do it, the regional study. The first attempt was to do it at the regional level. So they divided all Latin American and the Caribbean countries into 3 sub-regions, and this sub-region analyzed how could be the energy trade among the countries there. And now they are focused on doing it at regional level. So once they understood what could be the trade of energy trade at sub-regional level, they are now making an analysis of how this energy trade could be at regional level and how each of the sub-regions can benefit from the other sub-region. And in this study, we have 14 countries involved, and they are doing the study on their own. So we are just giving them the support, we are just giving them the tools and guiding them if they need it, but it's a study that is done by them. And then, next one. We also have similar study for the Europe and West Asia, where 24 countries are involved, and they are analyzing different paths for the low carbon goal. So they are trying to see what could be the energy policies that could help them to this ambitious goal that they have to decarbonize the energy sector by the year 2050. And they are also analyzing it, whether the country can be doing that alone, what could be the policy that they need to do at regional level, and how they could benefit one or the other to reach this ambitious goal that they have. And the last one, but not the least one, is next one, Andy, is the study that we have for Africa. This is a very big study. It's the Continental Energy Master Plan that they will do for the whole countries in Africa. It's a project that is not done just by the IAEA, it's with the support of the EU, so the European Union, the IRENA and the International Renewable Energy Agency, and us. We are helping the countries in Africa to develop their plan. And here is the same. So the goal, and click again. The goal is to have a plan that will involve all the countries in the region. It is led and it is done by their regional organization, the UDANEPAD, which is the regional organization. We are supporting them with the tool. We are supporting them to create the capacity. We are supporting them with experts that will help the countries to understand how the tools can be applied, to understand how they can model the policy and how they can model their goals and the technologies. And it is done together with the IRENA because they have a real and a big focus on how they can use all the renewable resources that they have in the continent, which is a huge amount, and then they can do that. And they would like also to see how they can do this cross-border and interconnection, and to have this power pool that could help and benefit all the countries there. In line with this, we have a technical cooperation program of the agency that will complement the activities in training capacity activities for this project. And with this, we are ending our presentation regarding the message model. I want just to thank you, all of you, and I pass the floor back.
Thank you, Andre and Ilse, for a wonderful presentation about the message some of my takeaways from the presentations. First, on the overview, it's important for integrated energy system planning to have coordinated action among organizers or organizations and among stakeholders. It's also important to have local expertise because they need to know the problem. They need to understand what the problem is. And with planning, it has to be constantly updated. And with this presentation and message, thank you so much for showing us how countries can use this tool, as well as showing us how it can give us the scenarios for electricity trade and for also factoring in environmental policies. And thank you for sharing with us the studies you've done so far. And now we move to our Q&A portion. Reminder to our audience, you can still type in your questions. And for this section or for this part of our program, I'll be turning over the control to Principal Energy Economist Kyung Nam to facilitate the question and answer.
Thank you, Linji. We'll have about a couple of questions that we have, and then we might try to understand. Try to respond to some of the questions that we have received. In fact, I'll try to facilitate that questions Q&A session here. First one, I'm not really clear what the question was. It is on that one, but I'll just read out. In the trade of traffic, we know that e-commerce, transportation regarding the toll lane, it is all done to speed up the traffic without a hitch. In this topic, integration is needed for what I have mentioned above. I don't know. What are the best tools in the future, energy transition that exist at this time? Are social cultural pyramids necessary in relation to human and technological aspect? This was a question raised. I'm not 100% sure that, how we can, but my, just looking at that, from this tool that we are doing for the energy system planning, and in terms of energy transition, this is like, if I quote that in the message tool, if I can just respond, Andrea and Ilse, you can compliment if I'm on the right track. How the message is doing is there is application database that we are talking, and then there is the technology database, and there is a scenario database. So what it does, what this tool does, it is in order to come up with the energy transition based on each country's strategy or their intention or their strategy or policy, that you can design the different types of the scenarios to meet up the thing. So how it does is energy demand is the exogenous variable that you have to come up with how much is the demand needed, apart from the energy efficiency aspects that you can also model as a technology, that based on the different scenarios that how fast that you can so to say design, and then also extract the tool can make a use for the different scenarios. So it will be very important to have the scenario, modeling the scenario for the energy transition. Where the social cultural pyramids is a relation of the human, I don't think the model will do, because this is a pure model that will not have the, so to say, kind of a two-factor learning curve or something like that. We are looking at the technological aspects in the modeling, but not necessarily the human capacity is included. Other than that, we look at there's a cost aspects in the variable cost or something like that. So, I hope that this is my response, my answer to this question. But I don't know whether Andrea or you said, do you have anything to talk more in the?
I will try to interpret the question. I have similar problem you do. It's not fully clear to me what's the question. So if I understand it correctly, basically question is, in the future we could imagine that e-commerce would be a bigger sector of economy, and because of these structural changes, it may have impact on physical shipment of the goods and services somehow. That need to be probably reflected in, like you said, in alternative future demand options where certain things, let's say physical services could be replaced with a more of e-commerce, and you need to have a different projection how it could be done. And my understanding, a linkage to the social culture, it's accessibility of corresponding services, and penetration specifically could be important question for rural part of the countries where they lack access to internet, and because of that they don't have full access of potential of e-commerce. They cannot sell the products or services so easily as other. And maybe it's also related to micro transactions where things could be, even a local market in a rural part could be paid with some sort of internet services. And we should not forget that in order to provide these services, you need extra energy, and in most cases electricity. And in this case, quality of the service could be also important, because you cannot rely on a service which is basically not reliable. So it probably cannot be directly represented in a tool, but indirectly in your assumption you can put certain requirements of the quality of non-interrupted electricity even for rural parts, and development of microgrids and other kind of the options. That would be my understanding of this question. I could be wrong, because it was not very clear to me what exactly a question is about.
Okay, hopefully that is something that we try to respond, that hopefully that who raised the question are satisfied with ours. Otherwise, you can send us the more clear the question on that one, that we can respond, so to say, through the internet, emails or something. And this is just a common example question. Next one is that how is your experience in engaging with the local institutions and bring them together to agree on data and assumptions and conduct the modeling? Has coordination and collaboration been a challenge? So how do you see it from the agency side? Because normally you're dealing with that, and then those ones who are coming into the capacity building, they should come in. This is the prerequisite condition for inviting the participants or the nominees for the government officials or stakeholders. We are providing the list of the data for this model, the input data required, and they should bring along the latest to their strategies or any type of assumptions so that they can build up the scenario. But normally that we don't have that kind of things. But I get the point. The question here is because that if you go into the remote areas or local government, that there are most of the cases that if you do design some local, so to say, modeling, then it has a limited the data and information and like that. So I think this is the question on that. What is your view?
I will start answering, and probably will give a pass to Ilse to share some practical experience. It's a problem. Let's be honest, it's a problem. And in the case of successful examples, it's actually addressed very early. It's not only about the data availability. It's about establishing a productive relation between the different actors, different ministers, different stakeholders, and it's all unique for each country. But it's a prerequisite for efficient energy planning. So start communicating start really working together and establish the productive relation between institutions. Probably you also want to add to that.
No, I just wanted to highlight that this is a challenge, but it's not a challenge for us. It's a challenge actually for the countries. So what we do there is to try to help them to how to coordinate, so to try to replicate best practices from other countries to the new countries, or to try to explain them why they need other stakeholders involved in the process, what could be the benefits out of having the different stakeholders involved in the process. So it's actually a challenge for the countries, and the part for agreeing in the data and so on is not so difficult once they understand what is this about. And then it's not something, it's not the data itself. The challenge is how to decide it when the data is good enough, when the data is the one that they want to do it. And then once they know the role of each of the stakeholders there, that's a smooth work after that. But that is a challenge for the countries, how to coordinate and how to work together. But the speeding is that once they understand it, it goes very smoothly.
Thank you, Jose. So we'll move to the next question. While doing the cross-sector planning, to what extent should we expand the coverage to avoid a paralysis? Anything?
That's also a challenge, Chad. So that's,
in fact, if I may add to this,
yes.
is because the energy system planning tools that the agency is supporting or maintaining, is that this is not a kind of a hybrid model, so to say. It is the it is model itself is the energy relevant. So in case that there's a cross-sectoral planning, is that we're looking at from the energy sector perspective, only from the energy side. And then that will be all under the assumption or through the constraint or resources till the end user side, that will be captured in the demand side. And then that will be modeled in such a way to come up. So later on, when you have the results, that you can interpret that how this will go to the different cross-sectoral challenge issues like that. So there will be it's not a hybrid model, so to say, that you can even add all kinds of things like that. So that's my response. Is it okay? Well, are there anything to comment? That's good. Let's move to the next question. This is the little, I think, Angie, it is addressed to you. I don't want to talk. Transform temporal spatial. This is indeed a systemic change. In your opinion, can seamlessly modularize the renewable energy with modular nuclear? Renewable act as a safety firewall around the sustainable and safe modular nuclear. Also, renewable energy can use carbon plus methane. Nuclear waste can be safe stored in case of a pebble bed, but pebble bed is not a storage bed. Anyway, so Andre, any quick response to that?
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, my personal opinion probably irrelevant. And one of the approaches we're trying to follow, we're trying to build the capacity to address this question. Station of each country differ. Access to technologies differ. Options are differ, and objectives are differ. So I would really warn people from trying to invent a generic solution that filled every size and every situation. So it needs to be studied for specific situation of specific national energy system and see under what condition, what combination of technology can actually satisfy your requirements. What's your objective? What's the goals? So talking about specific technology is very interesting for people dealing with this technology, but integrated approach is exactly to see what combination of technologies and the dynamically changing system makes sense for specific country. So yes, there are certain ideas how certain technology could be put together, and tools exactly for that, trying to build a model and evaluate under which condition it makes sense and under which condition it doesn't. So that's a whole energy planning exercise, is to find a suitable condition for a specific situation rather than generic one.
Correct. So, you have to identify what will be the current proven technologies that you are modeling in the design, as well as that what are the future that, you're considering this type of technology in terms of the new technologies like that. So that is the way that you're designing. So this is the kind of a scenario that you are building it under the certain assumption in terms of technology as well. Okay, there's another question. The future uses of clean energy is very important for all countries. Apart from this, how can IAEA support the Asia and the Pacific to increase the use of electric e-vehicles. That's specific to e-vehicles. So I think, you know, how does IAEA support that?
I probably have a quite disappointing answer to someone who asked this question. IAEA can do that. So what we can try to help you, try to make a certain kind of analysis and model where expert in this country to find out what kind of policy could lead to more use of these cars and what could be benefit for future system to use these things. But action need to be taken by countries, and financial options and implementation need to be dealt with donor organization, including, I don't know to what extent ADB could be involved, but our agency definitely cannot be involved in implementation of these things. So what we can help to understand the condition, rate, let's say, and specific policies which could be imposed for a country that leads to efficient use of different means of transportation, including electric cars, based on certain assumption on economic performance, technical performance, and other performance of these technologies, and affordability of corresponding options as well.
Great, Angie. So another question, I think we have two questions and then we have to stop here because we cannot continue. It's the time is due. So we'll have two questions now, and then we'll move to the, we need to close session here. So from IAEA experience, how long does it take in average to prepare the integrated master plan for a nation? And what would be the ideal national team to prepare the model, to input the existing system, to reinvestigate, investigate required assumptions and others? This is the question, Heidi. It depends on the size. Okay, Ilse, please.
I will try to respond to this very quickly because we are running out of time. So first, it depends on the country. So how big is the country? How experienced is the country? So there is no one recipe that fit everybody. So I could say that it could take from 1 year to 4 years, depending on the experience of the country and so on. And regarding the ideal national team, what we say that is we should have those responsible for coming up with the policy or to analyze the policy and to support the policy makers in the countries should be the leaders of that. And every stakeholder involved in the process should be part of that, either to provide data or to review the results or to provide assumptions or to make it more feasible. So there is no ideal recipe, like I said, for each of the countries that you could apply for all the countries in the world. So each country is different, each country has their own particularities. So what is our recommendation is that they need to identify all the stakeholders and all the important actors in the process of the energy planning. And that's the ideal team. So one team leading it and the rest collaborating and contributing to it.
Good, thank you, Ilse. So I will have a final question. And I think, Andre, or Ilse, how would a message or other tools for national or central energy planning perform for jurisdictions where, for example, the electricity generation and retail supply sectors are open to competition?
Message is not a central energy planning platform. Sure. And I think you also know that now. So I think it's quite well tuned for competition, because basically it's trying, if you go in details of, let's say, specific project, which could be implemented by different actors, it will try to find a rational combination for the most cost-efficient future system expansion, depending who can provide a more valuable option from system point of view. And in this case, we also consider backup option, storages, and other things. So it's not just one, how to say, actors that winning a competition. It's a combination of them providing different services and different functionality of overall system, and it's dynamic, which is changing over time. So I would say it's well tuned for that if you set up a model and using a tool in a proper way.
Great, thank you, thank you. I hope that we could get more, and then it was really great to have this kind of proactive discussion and during this session as well. So I will now, I think it's the 12 o'clock, so we have to expedite a little bit. I will turn the floor back to Linji for inviting the closing remarks. Thank you. Linji, it's yours.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you to our speakers and thank you to our audience for a very interactive session. And now for the closing remarks, we will be hearing from International Atomic Energy Agency, the section head of Technical Cooperation Asia Pacific. Welcome to the virtual stage, Gosha Walde.
Thank you very much, Lindre. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gasha Walde from the Division for Asia and the Pacific in the Department of Technical Cooperation of IAEA. It's indeed a pleasure to attend this spotlight session. The IAEA Department of Technical Cooperation is working together with the Department of Nuclear Energy and specifically the Planning and Economics section to provide need-based technical and capacity building support in promoting sustainable energy planning. The support is provided through national, regional, and interregional projects as appropriate. The type of activities as well as available services have been addressed by Dr. Nam and my colleague Andre and Elsie adequately. I may not resort back to that. However, in the spirit of the cooperative framework agreement concluded between the Asian Development Bank and IAEA, we have had rounds of consultation this year, and we planned a series of activities to initiate our collaboration with the Asian Development Bank in the area of sustainable energy planning. One of the activities envisaged is participation in this spotlight session, co-organizing also an awareness workshop in sustainable energy planning in July 2022, for which implementation action is at advanced stage. The other activity which is planned for 2022 is co-organizing a face-to-face workshop in energy planning and also introducing the available energy planning tools in IAEA. We expect this to be conducted in October 2022. Our cooperation is started and developing, but we look forward for a successful cooperation beyond 2022 in a number of other areas for the benefit of our member states in the Asian Pacific region. Thank you very much for organizing this event, and I thank all the colleagues for the successful deliberation that we had today. Thank you very much. Back to you, Lindri.
Our spotlight session on integrated energy system plan. Bye.